Joining me now is Senator Alex Padilla of California, member of the Rules and Administration Committee, and Janae Nelson, Associate Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. You know, Senator Padilla, Ted Cruz says a lot of stupid things. He does a lot of stupid things. But I personally, as a person of color, as a black person, am beyond offended that he would dare use the word Jim Crow when his party is literally a Jim Crow party at this point, trying to suppress the votes of people, including in his home state. I'm going to let both of you respond to him, starting with you, Senator, your colleague, Ted Cruz.
Oh, my God. Like you said, it's beyond offensive. It's beyond enraging, not just as a member of the Senate and a person of color, a voter of color in the United States of America, but as a former Secretary of State in California, where we know how to protect the security and integrity of our elections, but increase access to the ballot. Imagine that, helping people vote easier. You know, it's what really upsets me, the hypocrisy of our Republican colleagues who say they want to make it easier to vote, but harder to cheat. We've already done the second part. Voter fraud is exceedingly rare in America, but they forget about the first part. They have no interest in making it easier for eligible people to vote. That's what S1 is all about. We can modernize our elections, strengthen our democracy, and create a baseline for voting rights across the country, and clearly they want no part of it.
You know, Janae, you work for an organization that has been fighting against Jim Crow and including Jim Crow voting laws, which were specifically designed to stop black people from being able to vote. What Ted Cruz's state, they sued to try to overturn the votes of other states' elections. Ted Cruz could give a damn about Jim Crow. He's never raised one concern ever in his entire life that I've ever heard about Jim Crow or racism or discrimination. What do you make of his little comment there?
Well, listen, it would be comical if it wasn't so appalling and if so many people wouldn't be deeply misled by his misinformation and disinformation. Listening to the hearings today and listening to the opponents of the For the People Act, I couldn't tell whether this was just projection or just inconceivable delusion or both. Jim Crow 2.0 is the tidal wave of the over 360 voter suppression laws that are pending in state legislatures across the country. That is absolutely not what the For the People Act intends to do. As the senator said, the For the People Act intends to expand democracy, expand ballot access, expand voting opportunities for all Americans. But like their predecessors, the voter suppression laws that we're seeing being erected across the country, in Senator Cruz's state of Texas, in the state of Florida where we've sued, in the state of Georgia where we've sued, we see laws that are so similar to their historical predecessor, where soon as African Americans were able to exercise political will following the ratification of the Reconstruction Amendments, the laws were enacted, Jim Crow laws, to prevent them from exercising that power. That is exactly what we're seeing following the unprecedented turnout in places like Georgia that delivered the first Jewish senator to the U.S. Senate, that delivered the first Black senator since Reconstruction to the Senate, and in places like Florida where voters turned out in record numbers and used vote by mail. And then we saw the state legislature engage in an assault on vote by mail, engage in an assault on providing sustenance to voters as they wait on long lines. That is Jim Crow 2.0. And that is what we need to name and not be misled by the co-option of those words in support of hyper-partisanship and a hijacking of the history of this country.
You know, Senator Padilla, it seems like these things are all fairly obvious to anyone who's paying attention to what's going on. What is Jim Crow is the filibuster, very directly, right? It was used specifically to stop any legislation that would allow black people to vote. But yet Chuck Grassley has told a constituent that they've got Joe Manchin locked down, not only against not using the filibuster, but against this bill. Joe Manchin did meet with the president today. The president hosted Manchin and Sinema. Is Joe Manchin going to vote for this bill? And if it doesn't get 60 votes, then what's plan B?
Yeah, look, I think that remains to be seen. As Senator Manchin has said with other issues and other pieces of legislation, before entertaining using the reconciliation process or anything else, he wants to see a genuine effort at bipartisanship. Look, Democrats are trying, but if Republicans are going to continue to choose conspiracy theories over truth, there's only so much that we can do. But protecting fundamental voting rights, advancing a much-needed infrastructure package, tackling climate change, passing immigration reform. There's plenty of candidates for will finally break the back of the filibuster.
Do you think that your fellow Democratic colleagues understand that if they don't pass this bill, we may never get another free and fair election again? Did Joe Manchin, do Democrats understand that?
I think that's increasingly clear, absolutely. A lot of issues that we're passionate about, but as President Johnson once upon said, voting rights is the right that protects all other rights. If our democracy, the bedrock of our democracy, is undermined, we're in a whole world of hurt, and that's what we're fighting for with S1.
When you look at the way which party controls state legislatures, Janae, it's mostly Republicans. They control 29 state legislatures. Democrats control 20 from the Northeast and the West. There's one that's split. There's one that's nonpartisan. They could easily essentially write Black, brown, and young and working class voters out of existence. What happens if this bill doesn't pass?
That's why we are at an unprecedented moment of crisis in our democracy. The assault on the right to vote, the manipulation of institutions of governance for anti-majoritarian partisan entrenchment has never been more acute, especially when you consider the demographic flux, the actual potential that we have to finally realize a true multiracial, multi-ethnic, power-sharing democracy. But as we know, there is a diminishing minority that is deeply disturbed and concerned about that very realistic possibility and will do anything to thwart it. And I'm glad that you raised the filibuster. The filibuster is a significant obstacle to getting the For the People Act and its companion legislation, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, passed. Those are two necessary pieces of legislation to ensure that we do not entrench an imbalance of power for generations to come. It is imperative that these pieces of legislation get passed now.
Well, we shall see what happens. I think that this, what you see here on your screen, is what Republicans fear in the voting booth, and they're going to do everything they can to make sure it doesn't happen, including, Stephen from Django Unchained, a.k.a. Ted Cruz, who's working to stop fellow people of color from voting, which is amazing. Senator Alex Padilla, Janae Nelson, thank you both very much.